Hi. In my previous video, which is explaining some pretty alarming stuff, I refer to the fact that I don't have a Patreon account or ask for any form of funding for the work that I do, and that isn't to pour any scorn or to discredit the many good people out there who are earning funds directly from the videos that they make, sharing information in a lot more professional way than I do. I mean, these people are doing this for a living, but they are actually sharing facts and genuine guidance, and they're people who are operating from their own humanity. They have a genuine connection to their conscience and an understanding of the law and ethics and human rights. So the information they share is to alert the public, because they understand that we are under attack here, you see. So, this video really is, I'm focusing on just a few people. So I'm on 5 individuals here out of the many individuals who are doing the same thing. But I'm just focusing on these as an example, and they also happen to be my favourite news providers at this moment. So, alright, I already understand a lot of the information they're sharing. It's preaching to the converted, but it is a lonely thing to live with enlightenment and understanding in this world, because it's a very dark world, and it sustains itself by keeping people dim. So the people who do brighten up because they have found reason to lose their faith in the media lies, in the mainstream, and even the alternative media is infected by what I call now dark lights, controlled opposition, or people who perhaps unwittingly are putting forward the corporate narratives. And yes, I do get very angry. I get very angry when I witness people talking about sharing news and information that is directly related to this attack against our humanity that's increased right now. And then they get this platform and they suddenly have thousands of subscribers, and that they're asking for funds, but they're actually using their platform then, once they've hooked people in, to start peddling their own narratives, or actually reinforcing the corporate narratives. So it's like, well, why do people need to listen to them? But it's like, oh, well, perhaps people will believe more if they hear it from somebody who's not working for the mainstream, you see. This is the game that's going on right now. So I'm starting here with Farron Cousins of the Ring of Fire, and he's sharing a very important point here, and he's exposing this, I think it's Iowa, and MSNBC, supposedly Democrat supporting network. Well, let's say yes, they do. They support the centrist corporate Democrats, not the progressive Democrat Bernie Sanders, okay? And this is why we have all these people who stood up within the Democratic Party to stand against, really, they're standing against Bernie Sanders. And most of them, all of these actually to some degree are connected to corporations. They are all to some degree, some more than others, owned by the corporations. And Farron Cousins rightly points out here, notice that the one person that isn't in among them, these are supposed to be the top contenders, Bernie Sanders isn't in there. Even though, even in their own corporate media polls, which I take with a pinch of salt anyway, even within their corporate media polls, Bernie Sanders is third in popularity out of all these. In Iowa itself, but he is not shown among the contenders. And Farron Cousins says why. You know, because it is an attack, you see. And I've made a comment here. I said many thanks for alerting people to the corporate media games. Often they attack not by what they say, but what they choose to ignore. And ignorance, they hope, will infect equally the minds of their audience. We all need to face harsh reality. This is war. It's a war against our rights, our law, our democracy, and ultimately even our planet. A war waged by crazy people who will fight to own a bird of paradise only to witness its last breaths. What won't criminals do to avoid justice and remain at liberty to commit their crimes with impunity? Know this and know the veracity of attack, and therefore know the importance of the last remnants of humanity who yet remain within the midst of the corporate politicians. There is work to be done, and we've got the hands to do it. Let's get to work, and to start, stand by Bernie. Make it a vote for your human rights, the law, our children's future, and our planet. This is the fact. This is where we're at. Okay? Now, in America, it just so happens that at this very moment in time, what is happening in America is the same happening in Britain. While Americans have been told, you know, they've got to build a wall to keep out hordes of Mexicans coming in, Mexican criminals. We in Britain are being told we need this hard border between ourselves and Europe, because otherwise Europe's going to invite millions of Muslim terrorists into our nation. That's the basic gist of it. We have Bernie Sanders, who has never had a position in government. And in Britain, we have Jeremy Corbyn, the same. Okay? But veterans, political veterans, speaking out for the working people, for the people of their nation, for humanity. Against corruption, standing up for people's rights. Jeremy Corbyn in Britain, Bernie Sanders in America. And out of all the politicians in America and Britain, and I've been watching them for years, the shenanigans going on, that's why I've stayed out of it. I don't support political parties per se, but I do support human rights. I support the people who stand by those. So to me, Bernie, before he's a Democrat, he is first and foremost a human being. And now I have faith that the same is true for Jeremy Corbyn. I must say, for a while I was suspicious. But now I feel very strongly that Jeremy Corbyn is genuinely a human being who is standing up for human rights at his core. And the same for Bernie Sanders. And both these are being attacked by the same corporate media. Because, you know, Rupert Murdoch owns just as much of the media of Britain as he does of America's media. Okay? When it comes right down to it. And they have both of them being compared to communists, you know, Stalin. When actually, no, it's the corporations that are right now rolling out their corporate communism across our planet, hoping to control us all with 5G at some point. Okay, with their insidious agendas and plans, all absolutely ridiculous, coming from insanity, the insanity of their foundations, which are themselves based on insanity and ridiculous judgments and myths and fantasies. Okay, and fundamentally against our human rights And anybody actually who's going to stand up to them and say, no, sorry, your money cannot buy you the freedom to commit crimes against our planet and against our humanity and against our children. No amount of politicians that you can buy our votes, you see. That's where we need to be as a species, because we do need to save our planet. And our nations at the same time, you see, if we can rescue America and Britain from the clutches of this global criminal cabal, collectively the oligarchs, riding on the pretense that they're a patriarchy. Okay, they are not a patriarchy. They will do anything, and that's part of the reason why they want to smash the EU. That's why they want to keep this divide again within America, and they want to make sure that humanity, wherever it raises its head, is immediately cut down. Like in Venezuela, Venezuela's basically voted for their version of Bernie Sanders or Jeremy Corbyn. Oh, what a disaster. What a horror. What a horror for a nation to use their democracy to vote for a leader that will actually stand up for the people's rights and give them their fair share of the resources of their land. That they should profit from it by having universal healthcare and education and decent homes to live in. What a disaster. What a horror. Oh my gosh, it's communism. It's Stalin. When actually it's these people who are Stalin. It's the corporate puppets who are Stalin, who will quite happily, through an economic policy, murder people, who will happily murder people by making vital medical supplies so expensive that the people that need those medical supplies, for whom they were presumably created for, that they die because they can't afford them. And just as the corporate media will blatantly cut Bernie Sanders out of the picture there, they will also cut out the people like Farron Cousins of the Ring of Fire and the information that he is sharing. Okay? They will happily cut him out. Now, here is another person, artist taxi driver. He's an independent guy there, sharing information, guidance to the British public in his own style. He has got no Patreon account here. He isn't asking for money. He promotes his art, he sells his watercolours, and people buy them. Good. He is an individual, and he is an artist. He's got something to share, and yeah, all right. But the information that he's sharing, even though he is also selling his art through Twitter, not on here. You won't see his videos with his art, but he is a genuine guy. The information that he's sharing, the concern that he expresses, is genuine. So he's an important guy. And then we've got the last American vagabond, Ryan. The last American vagabond. He shares information, a very professional service. He devotes his time to it. The amount of research that he does, the information that he shares. Yeah, he deserves support. We deserve to help these people to get along. I mean, I haven't got much money myself. I live on a very minimum income. That doing a job as a carer that does give me some time to be able to do my other work. I have food, I have a roof over my head. So I am not asking for funds. But I understand that people who that is their life, you know, and so by saying that, you know, and that was the point I wanted to make, that just the fact that I say, well, you know, I'm not asking for funds, it isn't in any way to denigrate all of the people that are. Because we all need to support each other in whatever way we can. So I support the last American Vagabond by sharing his videos wherever I can, commenting, make sure I like them, sharing the information, picking up sometimes on what he says and sharing that in my own videos. These are people who are sharing light. Okay, the shining ones, as I've explained, of humanity. And we are all shining ones the moment that we perform the necessary mass exodus out of this fictional consciousness that's a fiction all of itself, its wars, its divisions, blah, blah, blah. Once people understand that we are universal, quantum, eternal, quantum light energy beings, living time after time, through time, we will understand that, look, sorry, this world, it's gone. It's gone. It is time for us to build something new. And there are enough people on this planet now to actually really create a paradise on this earth. But we've got a lot of problems to sort out. We have to face the problems with a plan, you know, a plan of action, which I'm going to share in my next video. Now, H. Thomas Ackermann here, he's an artist. And alright, his videos are not monetized either. But, alright, you could say, well, he's promoting his art. So what? His art is fantastic. Nobody else is promoting it. He's creating it, and he's got a lot of very interesting and important stuff to say. He's offering guidance and insights. He's sharing himself. And he, H. Thomas Ackermann, focuses a lot on Fukushima as the epitome, really, of everything that is wrong with our planet. I mean, Fukushima, 3 nuclear melt-throughs ongoing, killing the Pacific Ocean right now. It is literally humanity's worst nightmare. You know, the populations of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, it was our worst nightmare. That there could be not just even 1 nuclear melt-through, but actually 3. Ongoing for the last 8 years. Killing the Pacific Ocean, as has finally been admitted now, that the salmon stocks disappeared. There are no salmon. The entire food chain has been disrupted. Thousands of seals, baby seals, are turning up at California beaches every year, covered in sores. It's a horrific accident. And it was the result of negligence. They've tried to blame it. Oh, well, you know, there was a natural disaster. I'm sorry. They ignored all advice to prepare for this natural disaster. The corporate TEPCO that control Fukushima, that profit off it, they were warned, they were advised to build a barrier, and they refused, they failed to do it. They refused to do it. And now the worst has happened. And the corporate media, well, you know, they've done exactly as Farron Cousins is explaining here about Bernie Sanders. Who's missing Bernie Sanders? What's missing from our news? The absolute worst disaster, the very worst that we as a species could do to our planet has happened, and that's missing from the news. And Thomas Ackermann, God bless him, and many like him, Dana especially, are trying to alert people to this, to what is going on, that this needs our attention. It needs the attention of every nation. We need to sort it out. Something needs to be done. It isn't going to go away. It's only going to get worse. Now, this other guy, Hank McGurk, absolutely brilliant guy. He does a lot of gaming videos, but he also does a lot of videos that he shares his thoughts, his insights. I mean, some very interesting information about all kinds of things. I mean, I'll just leave you these links and you can listen to what he has to say. And here he's talking about Élan vital, okay, which is like the essence of life, the light of life. And you know, that is exactly what this world conspires to deny. And I've left a comment here on his thing, and I've said I found this quote from Wikipedia most relevant, and particularly the latter, which was this paragraph. The notion of Élan vital also had considerable influence on the psychiatrist and phenomenologist Eugene Minkowski, and his own concept of personal élan, the element which keeps us in touch with a feeling of life, and in brackets here it says, and is lost in autism. The element which keeps us in touch with a feeling of life, élan vital. The French army incorporated the doctrine of élan vital into its thinking during the lead up to the First World War by arguing that the spirit of individual soldiers was more important for victory than weapons. Now, you know, in a lot of ways that is true. And the war that's being waged against us is a war of words and a war of images and a war of judgments and concepts. But fundamentally, the war against humanity is specifically targeting our élan vital, isn't it? To convince us that we're wrong, to convince us that we're too weak, to convince us that we can never assert our collective sense and sanity, and that actually we have no right to even do that, you see. And so, you know, my addition there is humanity is quite demoralised by a lack of humanity from ruling powers, lack of intelligence due to their judgments against compassion as effeminate or a sign of weakness. Ruthless world powers abound, and they are weak, for without compassion they are stupid, and stupid cannot survive in an intelligent universe except to thrive in life as a cancer that will die with its hapless host. Okay. Perhaps something will happen to lift the depression we of conscience share too often, that we are infused with élan vital. It's the loneliness, ignorance, that's the killer. You see? It's loneliness, ignorance, that's the killer. Ignorance is the killer. Ignorance of reality. You know, and they play these games. Look, they'll show Cameron there, the man who burned Britain. The media, the gutter press will tell us about martial law and all the horrors they've got planned for us, so they can always say, well, we told you what was going to happen. Nobody said anything. You knew what was going to happen. We didn't make a secret of it. And people say, yeah, but it was in the Daily Mail or the Mirror or the Sun, and you know, that's the gutter press. It's like, but by the time it gets to the BBC, they normalise it all. And they ignore what the working man on the street has to say. They ignore the people of care and conscience and compassion. They ignored the kind of information and news that Ryan at the last American Vagabond shares, and Farron cousins, and is sometimes co-host Mike Papantonio. We all need to start shining now. And the way to shine, like I say, switch off the BBC. Forget their polls, forget their media, step out of it. Let's do a mass exodus of consciousness and step into our universal selves. And accept the problems of this world and understand that there are solutions, and we will create a better way and a better day, because now is our time. Because century after century after century, we have been trampled on, we have been stamped on, we have been ignored, ridiculed. No, now it is time for us to shine. Rise and shine, people, because I tell you now, we've got the information I'm going to share in my next video. We have that reason to be happy, to rejoice actually, and to celebrate. And yes, to mourn and grieve for the damages, for the losses, to recognise the mess that these monsters have been creating of our lives, our planets, our minds even. And many hands make light work. So we have an abundance of humanity on this earth right now, and we can repair our planet, and together we can give our children a future worth living. And you know, that was my point of why I make my videos, in order to try and just help people understand that, look, I know I'm just an insignificant little person sharing my thoughts, you know, probably reach 20, 30 people most of my videos, but I don't care if I've given you support, if you feel heartened, or perhaps if suddenly you're starting to wake up, you know. And yes, I've criticised some people recently, alternative news providers, who have set up shop, as it were, for Brexit, and then from there, you know, start getting the daggers out to Jeremy Corbyn. Of course, I get very upset, but I am a very forgiving person. You know, I accept apologies, or people say they were wrong. You know, the idea now is that we move forward in a spirit of amnesty, in a spirit of forgiveness, that yes, we accept that we've been offended by certain people, or, you know, I can't say I always agree with everything Farron Cousin says, or artist taxi driver, you know, but nonetheless, I appreciate that what they're sharing is from their true human, their true humanity, that they are sharing a light. And so we need to stand together. We need to stand together to catch a light and share it, and extricate ourselves out of this Babylonian madness mess that literally is thriving off the back of this horrible corporate monster that does threaten to devour our children's future, and actually it will destroy our planet. You know, there's no two ways about it. We can't wait for these corporations to change. We are going to have to do it ourselves. And as I say, the next video, I'll be sharing information about guidance about how we can do that. You know, I've only focused on the problems of this world in order, because people need to understand that, look, we're not talking conspiracy theories anymore. We're talking about conspiracy facts of this alleged new world order. It's the same old world order. The new world order was what the people of Europe established after World War II, that is being crushed. The world order where we care about the planet, where we have health and safety regulations, where we ban products that the corporate products that kill bees. You know, Trump, the lovely corporate puppet President Trump, has just abolished all legislation to ban certain pesticides that are known to kill bees, just at a time when, you know, our bees are facing extinction. What can I say? I'm going to leave you the links that I've shared here, and I advise people strongly, do watch regularly. Tune into Farron Cousins, tune into A Last American Vagabond, Thomas Ackermann, Hank McGurk, I find it hard to say his name, and obviously as well, Artist Taxi Driver. You know, get enlightened, get enthused, get in touch with your Élan Vital.